Hello, I'm Chuck Phillip of South Alabama Home Inspections, and welcome to another edition of Southern Home Talk. I wasn't going to do this video, but I figured why not? I'll go ahead and put it out there because this is sort of a subjective issue, these water filter systems. But this was cheap enough that it tempted me to go ahead and purchase it. This one's by General Electric, and it's a large filter system as well. And the main reason why I went ahead and did this is because the filters are not proprietary to the appliance itself. In other words, I can use different brand filters inside this unit, and this is a really large filter system as well. It's designed to filter the entire house. Now, I'm not going to do that with this, and so as a result, I won't have to change the filters as much either because I don't need to filter the entire home. All this is going to be filtering is just the kitchen, sink and dishwasher and ice maker. Now, there's all different types of filters that you can purchase as well, depending on what you're trying to filter out. And so you can just go and look at those online to find out, whatever it is, or maybe be taste or sediment or whatever, that they're just different ones of these, and some do a mixture of it all. And so, but what I figured I would do is go over some of the fittings and stuff. If you're trying to install this yourself, you can get a pen and paper out and you can write down the parts that I have so you know what they are. Because even though it comes with everything you need as far as the filter itself, it doesn't come with all the fittings that you're going to need to connect your plumbing system. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this a little bit different way. You don't have to do it this way, of course, but there's a certain method to my madness that I do. And I kind of want to put a clear hose. This is actually a clear reinforced hose. It's 1¾ inch, but know that these fittings here are 1 inch. And so most of your plumbing in your home is 3/4 half. And so more than likely you're going to have to get a reducing a bushing. That's what this is. It's 1 to 3/4 inch reducing bushing so you can get down to the pipe size that you have in your home. Now, if you have PEX, which if that's in a newer house, 2000s until now, you probably want to use a barb fitting that's for PEX, and if you got a PEX tool, you can crimp that. Now, I'm going to be going to copper because I live in an older home, and so I'm going to be going. That's a 3/4 female copper adapter there, and of course that's the same barb fitting as that. Now, I haven't done this yet, but I am going to put pipe dope on this, or pipe compound or thread compound. This is, to me, better than Teflon tape. As a plumber, I've always preferred this because sometimes, even if you put that tape on the right way, it still wants to slip. And so this pipe compound is usually a better product to use. And I'm going to be using these hose clamps to clamp the connection to the barb. That's what these are, stainless steel hose clamps. And so that's what we'll be connecting that. And so this has a rubber O-ring here that just sits on top of this. And it's really important that you don't over tighten this. This really just needs to be a little bit more than hand tight. And that's what this wrench is for here, spanner wrench, is for, is to tighten it up just a little bit more. You can over tighten it and it'll cause it to leak. Now, I kind of sort of wondered what this was. It looked like a remote control. That's well, but what it really is, it also came with batteries. You have to take a little screwdriver and pry it open. It takes 2 AAAs. But this sits on top of this, and it serves as a reminder to replace your filter. But the directions state they should be replaced every 3 months. So I don't think you really have to put that in unless you just wanted to. It came with it, so I probably will use it. But this is a large filter system, like I just said. It's so large, in fact, that it comes with a really heavy-duty steel bracket, and these are 1/4 inch lag bolts. So it's pretty heavy. This whole thing is. This is really heavy-duty. I almost thought that was glass, but it's really just hard plexi glass or a polymer. And so anyway, I'm going to go do a part 2 to this as well. Just know that there's a certain direction that this has to be installed. That's going to be the in there, and this is going to be the out. So that needs to be installed a certain way. and there's a red button underneath there, and that's used to purge the air out of this after you've energized this system. And just know that this valve up there, you know, it has 3 positions, on, off, and then a bypass, and so know that as well. And then I also recommend, you don't have to do this, putting a secondary main cutoff valve to this. Now, I already have one down there that's connected to copper. This is a PVC ball valve. And if you can, always use the ball valve instead of gate valves. They close real quick and easy, and they're less prone to leak. Even if you have to pay a little more for them, that's really the better choice in valves. And so this thing here will fit on top of this. You know, that's how that goes. This is the filter here. It slips down in there. But anyway, I'll show how all this gets connected up later on. So anyway, I'm going to end this video, or at least this part of it, focused on the directions. And you can just, you know, take your time and pause the video and read it. I mean, this may be more beneficial than what I've just told you. So that's what I'm going to do right now. All right, that's going to be pretty much it. The rest is in other languages. There will be a part 2 to this, so stay tuned to the next part. Okay, a quick little update before I go underneath the house. This came with the lag bolts. The longer ones, just so you know, go on the top, and the shorter ones are going to be going in the brackets to the wood joist in my case. Now, depending on what you're mounting to, you might have to, if you're going to a concrete wall, you're probably going to have a different type of fasteners. Now, it's a 1/2 inch, but if you use this, it's going to work your butt off, man. And so what I did is I have the same bit, and I chucked it up in this drill motor, and I just went right on down with them with that. And so if you're going into wood, I recommend that you take a drill bit and make a pilot hole first before you put those in. It makes it a lot easier. Now, I've already have the pipe dope, as I call it, on the threads. They've already been threaded in. I use this adjustable wrench here to put that in there. But you want to tighten the bigger fitting first before you do the smaller one. And because you might crack the threads, and you might do it either way. But just be careful when you tighten these plastic fittings. They can crack if you over tighten them. I mean, they do need to be tight, but you just have to have a sort of tightening feel, you know, to know just how tight to tighten these. And that's part of the reason why I went with a barb fitting, because if this leaks, all I have to do is undo this hose clamp and pull that plastic hose off and retighten it and put it back on. And that's one of the reasons why I went with the clear hose to do this. Now, I can't remember if I brought this up in the first part of the video. This is an O-ring here at the top, and it's got some, probably petroleum jelly on the top of this as well, a little bit of it. And so this needs to sit right here in the top. And so when you put this on to the bottom of this, You don't want to over tighten that because it can damage that O-ring. But I'm going to get in that in the next part of this. So just keep watching, guys. All right, a little bit of an update here. I'm underneath the house now, and so I'm about to make my cut into my water supply that feeds the kitchen. And so this is copper pipe down here. It's been here since 1964. And it's always kind of interesting whenever I cut this open, so I get to really inspect to see what this pipe still looks like. You know, so far, most of the time I've cut into this, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to make a cut on this, and I'm going to have to solder some fittings on here as well. And just know this too, that a lot of times these old copper pipes, when they were installed, in fact they were doing it all the way until the 80s, some of these soldered connections probably contain lead. And so you can actually see I actually have an old roll of that right there, that red one. And of course this one here's the lead-free solder, and that's what I'm going to be using. Even though they weren't supposed to be using this lead in the 80s, a lot of plumbers still like to use it because it takes so much heat to sweat the fitting on there. And that's why they were still using it until they could find that stuff. And so pretty much have to use MAP gas or something a little hotter to get the solder to run. And so anyway, that's where we are. And I have a fan down here that I put an air conditioner filter on. This has the old fiberglass insulation that they put on here probably in the 60s. Anytime you can get away from fiberglass insulation, I advise doing it. I don't like it at any place, not even in the attic. And so, but that's just my own personal thoughts on that. And so anyway, when I go to remove it, I put this fan on it, it actually helps remove these particles as well. And hopefully it'll exhaust some of this fumes from this soldering process too. Now, when you're using a torch, you know, I've got foam insulation here that I had to take down because I don't want to catch it on fire. I got to be really careful doing this underneath there. Plus I've got spray foam insulation underneath the subfloor. And so I'm going to have to really pay attention to what I'm doing down here. Have water on hand. I've also cut the water off the main valve there. I don't know if you can see it. If you notice, I have isolation valves everywhere. And this is the optimal thing to do to your home, is to be able to isolate your plumbing so you don't have to cut it off to the entire house. And so I have got a fire extinguisher on hand, and so I'm going to cut this pipe. I've already got the water off, like I said. Got this valve cut off. I've got the kitchen sink faucet open to act as a vent, and I'm going to put this bucket underneath here when I cut this tubing or this pipe so it can drain into that. The one bad thing about copper is it needs to be bone dry in order to solder it, and that's the only bad thing about it. And so, you know, if you're just a regular homeowner, I don't like those shark bite fittings, but that really is the path of least resistance in most cases. So anyway, just keep watching, guys. I'm going to have the rest of this coming. All right, here we are at the tail end of this. And so I've got this mounted up. I had to cut a piece of 2x4, you know, so I could get it running the right way. And now you can start to see why I used this flexible hose to make this connection, because I kind of had a feeling I was going to have to make some sort of offset. And this hose is flexible enough to do that. PEX really isn't. And so anyway, I used hose clamps on there on the barbed fitting, and I've got this up. I had to raise it up a little higher and had to drill some holes in that plate to kind of help stabilize that. I was able to get 2 of the 1/4-inch bolts in there, and you can see all these cutoff valves here. So it's got its own independent cutoff valve in addition to the one that's at the top. You know, like I said earlier, so I always recommend having independent ball valves for every service point. And you can see way down there maybe that white PVC pipe coming down. I installed that ahead of time because I was having problems with water coming through this pipe here. It didn't seem to want to drain out because you have to have a really dry copper pipe in order to solder it. It just won't take if it's any kind of dampness to it. And so I sweated a female adapter on this side and a male adapter on this side here. And so I'm about to turn the water on here in a few minutes. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. So probably the real trick to this is to make sure the O-ring is on top of this before you put it on. And like I say, don't over tighten it. There's a spanner wrench right there. And I recommend you keep that spanner wrench at the filter. And so I've got an old copper line right there I'm going to hang it on, so it'll be right there in plain view whenever I have to come down here and change the filter. And I'm also going to leave the extra filters here as well, so that way you have to run around looking for them. And you could probably put a little pad down here and write down when you replace them as well. So I don't know if I'm going to do a follow-up to this or not, but if I don't, thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and take care. Alright guys, well I debated on whether or not I was going to do a follow-up to this, and so I figured I better, because there's some information here you're going to want to know. The way I have this mounted up really high like this, I couldn't see the directions on the top there of what the position of that valve handle services, and so I wrote it on the side. You can see right there, and also wrote it on this end too, so I don't have to get at the very top of this to find out what direction that valve handle needs to be placed in to do these certain aspects of it. And so anyway, that's something I recommend you do if you mount it like I have it mounted here. And this really went pretty well. I didn't have any problems with it. I left this bucket in here overnight, and there was no leaks when I come back down here this morning. But I recommend you do that too whenever you install this, to leave a bucket underneath it just in case you do have a leak. But it's probably a good idea to leave the bucket down here anyway, because anytime you change this filter, you're going to need something to catch the water with, and that bucket's going to serve that purpose. Now, one thing you're going to want to do whenever you're working on your plumbing system is to leave the faucet open and then turn your water back on, leaving the faucet open, to let all the air purge out of it, of your water line, before you close your faucet back. Now it does have a purge valve on the side of this. That's what that red button is. And so what they want you to do is actually take your finger there and push that, and that takes the air out of this canister. But also leaving the faucet open will serve that purpose too. Now I'm going to go ahead and let you see the parts list I have here, because I didn't really clearly go over that in the first part of this. And the parts that you may need may vary depending on whether or not you're going to PEX, and most people have PEX now if you're living in your home. And so this is a PEX fitting there, and if you notice, it's real loose inside this. This inside diameter is larger than 3/4 PEX, but that's one of the reasons why I went this clear hose, is because of the larger diameter. Now you can get fittings over to PEX, just so you know that, but here's the zoomed in list of this, and you can freeze frame this, maybe take a screenshot of it, and then print it off and take it to your hardware store. Thanks for watching, guys. Also, please subscribe to this channel. Stay fully focused to just the home issues here in the Deep South, and I do follow-ups to this on the Facebook page, Southern Home Talk, as well. Thanks for taking the time to watch this, and I hope this has helped y'all.